This is the life of a beekeeper. There's a beekeeper back there, and you can't really see that there are 3 open hives in the back of the car. Our first year, when we started keeping bees, we didn't really anticipate how attached to them we'd get. You know, we viewed it as a fun hobby and we'll get a little bit of honey, something like that. But we started to recognize that we were getting really attached to these creatures. And the more attached that we got, the more dedicated we became. We were gonna be the best possible beekeepers ever, right? These were gonna be the happiest, healthiest bees ever. We also knew in the back of our minds the statistics and the challenges that bees face in the environment and the annual losses, but that wasn't gonna happen to us. In the winter, when the bees, when it gets too cold for them to fly, they sort of act like penguins. They all huddle up in a cluster inside the hive and they shiver to keep each other warm. They can't actually break that cluster once it gets below about 50 degrees ambient temperature. So in Colorado, there can be stretches of days or even weeks that the cluster doesn't move. And so you'll see no activity from the hive from the outside. So you're just kind of crossing your fingers and hoping that they're doing okay and that the next warm day you'll see them flying. Well, I wasn't comfortable with waiting that long. I'm not a very patient person. I'll bet I could use the stethoscope to listen into my hive to make sure my bees are still alive. So I ordered my bright blue honeybee stethoscope. And then when winter came and you stopped seeing the activity, I'd use it. I'd go out to the hive, I'd put the stethoscope on the side of the hive and I'd gently tap and listen. And every time you tap, you hear a boom from the cluster. Well, one day, I think it was probably late November, early December, we had just had a particularly cold snap. And it was warm enough that I anticipated that I should see my bees flying. And one of the hives, I didn't see any flying. So I went outside with my stethoscope and I put the stethoscope to the side and I tapped on it and I heard nothing. I moved it around to some other areas because the cluster will move to different places in the hive. And after probably a half dozen times, the only thing I could hear was that really cold, kind of dead silence from an empty box. And I started to get really worried. So I called up my wife and I said, I've been listening to the hive. I'm not hearing anything. I don't know what's going on. What should I do? We had a conversation and we decided that it was warm enough that it was probably okay to kind of pop the top of the hive and look inside. And so I did. I popped the top and I looked inside and I saw nothing. And I heard nothing. So I started to slowly pull the hive apart and I finally found what had once been a cluster of probably 50 or 60,000 bees. There was maybe 300 or 400 of them left and they were all dead. And I broke down crying. And that's when I realized that I had really bonded to these things and they meant a lot to me and they do to this day and I care a lot about them. So to come to a veterinary conference and have the opportunity to talk to my peers about honeybees and the challenges they face and the things that all of us can do to help support them fills my heart.